guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Ulzzangmas. In this video, we're going to be finally talking about my top 10 eyeshadow palettes of 2021. Speaking of eyeshadow palettes, I decided to give this one a try. This one is from Lila B. It is Envied, or Be Envied, I think is the name of the palette. I grabbed this in the Boxy Mega pop-up shop. I have really been wanting to try Lila B for a while, but I have to say I was not too impressed with the formula. I had a bit of a difficult time blending it. Could be the eyeshadow primer that I use, so I am going to play around with it a little bit more. I love this heavyweight packaging, but so far, just from first impressions, I'm not super impressed with the formula. I loved the Lila B cream blush that I got, but we're going to play around with this a little bit more and see what we think. I have my top 10 palettes here. I'm going to be talking about these in no particular order. It was so difficult just to condense all of my eyeshadow palettes that I enjoyed this year down to just 10. Trying to actually rank them and put them in order, I don't think I was ever going to actually be able to do that. That was going to be impossible because I just love so many of these palettes. I don't know that I could actually rank them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a palette off the top and then just slowly go from there. I have pre-filmed some swatches for some of these palettes so that you can get a closer look at some of the formulas, because some of the formulas in these palettes are just absolutely stunning. I did want to give a quick update about Ulzzangmas. As you guys know, originally the plan was to upload from December 1st through the 25th, so I would have my 25 days of Ulzzangmas, which is what I did last year. I'm still going to have 25 videos. There may actually be a couple of more in there, but my daddy will be here on the 23rd, and then my husband will be here on Christmas Eve. I have the videos like prepared, but I don't know if I'm going to have time to get them edited and uploaded in time to have the videos through the rest of the week up to the 25th. With my family being here and it's the holidays, I don't want to feel like I'm rushing to get the content out. I want to kind of do it the right way and have time to focus on it. So basically what I'm saying is that if I'm not able to get the videos up through this week, through the 25th, whatever I have not been able to get up, well, I will just put up after Christmas, but they will be up before the new year. Hopefully we're not having any audio issues and everything looks and sounds good. But let's start with our first palette that I'm going to be talking about. This one is from Colourpop. This is the Lust for Dusk palette. This was an Ulta exclusive. I think it still is. It might be available on the Colourpop website right now, but I'm not sure. As you guys know, Colourpop has launched so much stuff. They just like to drop one thing after another, and so a lot of times things just don't feel special. But I have three palettes actually in my top 10. The ones that just stood out the most to me this year, and this is one of them. First of all, I just love this tropical packaging, and this color story to me, I thought it was just so pretty. You have a mixture of warm and cool tones in here, beautiful shifty shimmers. I felt like you can take this palette and you can do a nice warm tone summer look. You can do a cool tone wintry look with this palette. I feel like there are so many looks and so many ways that you can go with this palette, and even though some of the shades in here are similar to shades in other palettes, I feel like the tones are a little bit more unique, and I also liked the way that they put the palette together, the way that they, I like the way that they curated this color story is what I'm trying to say. I just thought this was a very beautiful palette. This next one is also from Colourpop. This one is one of my absolute favorites, period, within my entire makeup journey, and this one is the High Tide palette. This was one of my absolute favorite palettes to work with this year. This one just gives me mermaid vibes just right off the bat with this particular packaging. The design on the packaging, it's kind of raised a little bit. It's not like completely flat. The color story in this palette is teal, like teal blues, teal greens. I mean, it is so freaking gorgeous. These tones in this palette are so beautiful. These shimmers are so shiny and wet looking. Like I said, this just gave me beautiful watery mermaid vibes. I do not have anything like this any of the palettes in my current collection, and when it comes to Colourpop's 9-pan monochromatic palettes, to me this is one of the most unique ones they have come out with. It is just stunning. This one is from Sydney Grace. This is the Tiny Marbles palette. I believe this one actually came out last year, but this year was when I was finally able to obtain it I believe. But this was the collaboration with Mel Thompson. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Mel Thompson or followed her, but Mel did pass away. It's about 3 months ago, and I never mentioned it or talked about it on my channel. It was really, really difficult for me. Mel Thompson was one of the most kind, sweet, humble, gentle, most generous people that you will ever meet in your lifetime. She was just a wonderful, unique soul. She was one of the inspirations for my channel. I loved watching her videos. I think she was just kind and humble. What you saw was what you got. There was no fake about her. She was genuine. She was just one of the most wonderful people that I've ever seen on YouTube. And when her husband made the post on Instagram announcing that she had passed away, it was devastating for me. And it was very difficult for me to talk about. So like I said, I just never mentioned it on my channel. I kind of dealt with that grief, on my own. She had been sick for a while, but it wasn't until her husband had made the announcement she passed away that we realized how serious it actually was. And it was a huge shock to the community. I mean, she was one of the most kind, unique soul in the beauty community. She was just absolutely wonderful. This was her baby, her collaboration with Sydney Grace. All of the colors in here, it was reminiscent of the tattoos that she had on her body. If you've ever seen Mel, if you follow her, she has tattoos everywhere. And this was inspired by her tattoos. This is my first time ever using a Sydney Grace formula, and oh my god, it is stunning. I mean, look at this color story. I'm gonna throw some swatches in here showing the close-ups of the shimmers, especially this one up here, which is called Scarab. This one right here is so creamy and so wet. It's kind of got a black base to it, and I think you can see it right there, how it shifts from green to purple, and there's a bit of blue in there as well. It's just such a creamy, shiny, wet, unique formula. It is so beautiful. Like I said, you'll see in the swatches some of the other shimmers in here, and I also swatched a couple of mattes. The formula is just so smooth, so buttery, so creamy. The shimmers kind of have a unique kind of shifts to them, and you can see all the heart and soul that Mel put in to this palette. She loves Sydney Grace. This next palette, I ordered this one last year, but it actually got to me, I think, in March. This is the Batty Bean X Shroud It's Freaking Bats eyeshadow palette. Now, Batty Bean, Betty Jean, she's actually done a rebranding, so now she is Batty Bean. So if you were to get this palette now, yours will say Batty Bean, not Batty Bean. But Shroud Cosmetics is a very small independent brand. And I remember when this palette launched, Trend Mood had put it on her feed, so everybody saw this palette. The color story, absolutely brilliant. You can tell there's a lot of Beetlejuice inspired shades in here. When you look at this palette, you see Betty Jean. This is her in a nutshell. This is such a beautiful curated palette. This is her baby. Now, what happened was that because of the fact that Trend Mood had put it on her feed, when this palette launched, they were overwhelmed. Shroud was one woman at the time. One woman. And she was making all these palettes by hand herself. So she ended up having to close her store until she could get caught up in the palette. So I think I ordered it October 2020, and it got to me like early this year, which is fine. I mean, I perfectly understood. I was patient. It's worth it. It's a very, very beautiful formula. One of my absolute favorites. Shroud Cosmetics shimmers, so creamy. Their mattes blend like butter. Even the deepest shade, like here, the deep purple, which, purples can sometimes be hard to formulate. This blends like butter. And like I said, if you get this palette now, yours will say Batty Bean instead of Batty Bean. What I would do is anything that is currently in stock and still available, I will try to link down below, so if you guys are interested in the palette, you'll still be able to get it out. It'll be easier for you to find. All right, the fifth palette that I'm going to be talking about today. This one is from Glamlite. This is the Dirty Martini palette. This was part of their cocktail hour. There were 4 palettes altogether. I got 2 out of the 4 palettes. This one, and then I also got the wine palette. This one is kind of a green toned palette, but as you can see, there are other tones in here. There are browns in here. There's this deep pigmented kind of a teal blue. One thing that I had heard mentioned was that the matte formula in the wine collection or the cocktail hour collection was not the same as in their previous palettes. I don't know. I really didn't see that much of a difference. I have the red velvet and I had the ice cream dreams palette that came out last year. The wine palette was a little bit harder to work with, which is why that one is not in my top 10. But this one I just thought was so beautiful. These shimmers, so creamy and wet. They blend like butter. Now I will say the mattes didn't blend as well as previous palettes, but I didn't really notice a huge difference. But I feel like where this palette just really stands out is in the shimmers. They are absolutely stunning. I had to stop filming for a moment. My little bear called. He is having a sleepover, so I had to answer the phone. But let's go ahead and move on to the next palette. This next one is from BH Cosmetics, and it is the Lunar New Year 2021 edit. This was one of the first palettes that I got this year. It may have been the first one, I'm not sure, but it was definitely one of the first ones. I think BH Cosmetics comes out with a New Year palette like every year, and this one was the one for this year. And this is the 2021 New Year edit, the year of the bull. I just thought everything about this palette was just so nice. The cover is really, really cute, and I thought the color story was really beautiful. I love the formula in here. I loved all these beautiful tones. To me, this is just a very festive palette. Like, I can definitely see, you know, Lunar New Year when I look at this palette. One of the things about this particular formula that surprised me was the pressed glitters. As you guys know, if you have been following me for a while, I am not a huge fan of pressed glitters. They are not my favorite by any means. But the ones in here, when you apply them to your eyelid, first of all, pressed glitters are not intended for eye use. I just kind of want to put that out there, but I do put them on my eyelids. I'm just saying that they're not intended for that, so I do want to put that warning out there. But when you apply these pressed glitters, they stay on. You don't even have to use a glitter base or glitter adhesive. The glitters don't fall all over your face. When you put it on, they stay, and they stay all day. And that was one of the things I was very impressed with this palette. But this like green shade right here, it is just absolutely stunning. This light bright green here. This whole palette was so pretty. We are down to 4 more palettes. So we've talked about 6. I have 4 more palettes that I'm going to be talking about. These next 2 are from Beauty Bay. This was my first experience with a Beauty Bay eyeshadow formula. This first one is the Age of Opulence palette. Both of these palettes have 20 shades in them. This one came first, this one came next. I think the Age of Opulence one was specifically their holiday palette, but this one, I'm going to go ahead and show you both just so you can kind of see the comparisons. And I did do swatches of like the shimmers from both of these palettes, but this one is the Widlerness. Hold on. And then this one is Age of Opulence. As you can see, Age of Opulence has more purpley, bluey jewel tones, and then this one has more greens and blues, more of like that jungle theme that we're going on, that we have going on. My only issue with this palette was I felt like the purple mattes were a little bit harder to work with. I did have a little bit of trouble with blending. When I did the swatches for these mattes in this palette for that initial video, it did not swatch worth the darn. They did blend better. I still had a little bit of a difficult time, but they blended way better than they did when I swatched. But where this palette stands out is these jewel tone shimmers. This palette I think was only like $18. When you consider how inexpensive both of these palettes were, you are getting such a beautiful, amazing formula, especially with these shimmers. Very wet, very creamy, very shiny. They blend like a dream. Just so beautiful. Between the Age of Opulence and the Widlerness I did enjoy more. When I saw this on Trinamood's feed on Instagram, I was like, oh my god, I have got to get that palette. This is such a beautiful color story. These beautiful redstone here, this kind of a jewel toned royal blue, the jungle greens. These shimmers in this palette, oh my god, they are amazing. You have a shifty kind of a blue to purple. Up here in the corner, this shade is called Ocean. This one is kind of black base as well. Kind of similar to that shade in the Sydney Grace, but this one is a lot more blue, has a lot more purple to it. Let me just absolutely beautiful. I loved everything about this palette, and I am looking forward to trying more palettes from Beauty Bay coming in 2022. All right, we have 2 more palettes to talk about. This next one is the last palette that I have in my top 10 from Colourpop. This is the Stone Cold Fox palette. I am not sure if this palette launched last year or early this year. I picked it up over the summer during a 30% off sale. I'm more of a warm tone neutral gal when it comes to, you know, those soft neutral tones, but I have been wanting to try more cool tones. Most of my palettes in my collection, if not all, are more warm toned than they are cool tone, because I just didn't think cool tones looked good on me. I don't know why, but I just didn't think that they would. Like I said, this palette was 30% off, and I didn't really have any cool toned and neutral palettes in my collection, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and grab it, and I really enjoyed this palette. I loved all the icy, smoky, cool tone looks that I was able to put together with this palette, and this palette showed me that cool tones actually do look really good on me. I'm actually wearing some cool tones today. Not this palette, like I said, it's the Lila B palette, but I would say the ones in this one are better than this one so far. But yeah, I really enjoyed this palette. I'm looking forward to playing around with more shades in here. Every now and then I'll pull this out and try to like test out, you know, different shades in here so that I am kind of getting use out of all of them. But I really did enjoy this palette. I thought it was stunning. The last palette that I will be talking about today in my top 10 palettes of 2021, this is the Revolution Beauty Makeup London XX Kombucha palette, and this one is huge. This is a monster. I don't know exactly how many eyeshadows are in here, but yeah, this is a big one. I think there's 32 shades in here, if my math is correct. So 32 shades of eyeshadow. There are 3 blushes, and then there are 2 highlighters. If you are somebody who loves orange eyeshadow, if you are somebody who loves orange blush, you just love orange makeup in general, this is for you, honey. This was made for us. This is the orange makeup lover's dream. This shade right here in the middle is a perfect pumpkin orange. I love the way that orange tones look on me. I feel like they just warm up my skin and make me just look wide awake and healthy. I absolutely love everything about this palette. I have pulled this palette out so many times. I even enjoyed this kind of more bricky red blush in the middle. It's a beautiful palette. This sparks joy. This makes my orange loving heart just so happy. And that, guys, was my top 10 eyeshadow palettes of 2021. Some of them are newer launches that came out this year. Some of them were palettes that didn't come out this year, but that I obtained this year and fell in love with. Let me know if you have any of these palettes and what did you think of them. If you don't have any of these palettes, which ones are like brands that you think you might want to try in the coming year? I love hearing from you. I love hearing your thoughts. I love interacting with you guys in the comments. I definitely want to do more of that in 2022. As you guys know, I took a little bit of a break. Right before I took my break, I was having a really hard time. But since coming back, I've really been enjoying it. I feel like I found my motivation and my creativity again. So I'm pretty excited about what's to come. If you like these types of videos, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help my channel. If you are new to my channel and you are not already subscribed, I would love it if you would consider joining my little family and hitting subscribe. And make sure you tap that notification bell as well so that you get the notifications for every video that I have coming up in the future. Also, if you are not already, I would love it if you would consider following me on Instagram and TikTok as well. Be safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.